It was a chilly night in early March, a couple of years ago. I had just returned home from a late shift, and it was nearly midnight. Exhausted, I wanted nothing more than a cold beer and to relax on the couch. I settled in, savoring the taste that always seemed better after a long day. Instead of turning on the TV, I closed my eyes and tried to push away the stress weighing on my mind. After a few minutes of flipping through channels with no luck, I gave up and decided to enjoy my beer in silence. But just moments later, all the lights in the house went out. You know that fuzzy popping sound before everything goes dark? I hate it. Our house had a habit of losing power, so I stepped outside to check if my neighbors were affected. I closed the door behind me, hoping for a quick fix. It was late, but I noticed at least one house on my block still had lights on, confirming the problem was mine. I took a deep breath, knowing this would ruin my night. When I tried to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. Confused, I banged on it and called my wife's name, but there was no answer. I ran to the back, but that door was locked too, which was odd. I rushed to the side of the house to check the breaker, and that's when I froze. My hose, usually coiled, lay in the grass beneath the breaker box. Someone had cut the power intentionally. I sprinted to a window and peered inside. Two flashlights swung wildly, revealing intruders rummaging through my house. Anger surged. How dare they do this while I was home? I reached for my phone to call the police, but I had left it on the couch. Cursing, I decided to run to my neighbor's house for help. Then I remembered my wife was still inside, likely asleep. I couldn't leave her there. I dashed back, grabbed some loose rocks, and threw them at our bedroom window. After the third rock, she opened it. I quickly explained the situation and told her to hide in the closet. She complied without hesitation. I ran to my neighbor's house, banged on the door, and explained the situation. I borrowed his phone to call the police and waited, praying my wife would be okay. When the police arrived, I rushed to them, but it was too late. The back door was wide open, and the intruders were gone, taking many of our valuables. My wife was shaken, and I felt a wave of anger at myself for not protecting her. Seconds after I told her to hide, she heard someone kick the bedroom door open and saw an intruder with a gun. She had never been more terrified. I still regret leaving her in the house. We still live there, and I often think about what could have happened if I hadn't stepped outside.
I've always lived in my older brother's shadow. He runs a successful business, while I've struggled to find my footing. Recently, I moved back in with my parents, which felt like a step backward, but I didn't have many options. I stayed in the basement, which was like a mini apartment, allowing me to feel less like a burden. One stormy night, my parents were out of town, and I enjoyed the cozy ambiance of the rain. Just as I was about to sleep, the power went out. Annoyed, I considered checking the breaker, but decided against it. Suddenly, I heard a loud thud against one of the basement windows. Initially thinking it was a branch, I hesitated but decided to check it out. Holding my phone flashlight, I was shocked to see a man's face pressed against the glass, staring in at me. I stumbled back, heart racing, when I heard footsteps above me. Panic set in. I was home alone, and someone was in my house. I needed to act fast. I checked my phone but realized I had no service due to the power outage. I felt trapped. I couldn't just wait for the intruders to find me. I decided to sneak upstairs, slip out the front door, and call the police. Quietly, I crept up the basement stairs, heart racing. Peeking around the stairwell, I saw three figures with flashlights moving through my dark house. One of them mentioned my name. "Alex is in the basement. Go find him." I was paralyzed with fear. How did they know me? I backed down the stairs, desperate to escape. The only exit was through a sealed basement window. I grabbed a nearby stool, smashed the glass, and climbed out into the rain. Despite cuts all over my body, I didn't have time to feel pain. Once I reached a safe distance, I finally got a signal and called the police. When they arrived, the intruders were long gone, and many valuables were stolen. The power outage had been intentional. My parents were furious and nearly kicked me out. I begged them not to, insisting there was nothing else I could have done. They eventually calmed down, but I was still shaken. I have no idea who those people were or how they knew my name. A few months ago, I took a security job at a warehouse in an industrial area. It was usually quiet, which I liked. But one Thursday night, a storm rolled in. The power flickered but held steady until about an hour in, when it finally went out, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Frustrated, I stepped out of my security room to restore power. As I patrolled, I heard a loud metallic clattering from deeper in the warehouse. I brushed it off as the storm, but decided to check it out. When I rounded a corner, I froze. A faint beam of light, just like mine, moved along the shelves before disappearing. My heart raced. I debated calling out, but didn't. As I continued my patrol, I noticed a musty, metallic odor coming from one of the loading bays. Following the smell, I saw wet footprints leading into a storage aisle. I wanted to run, but curiosity got the better of me. I crept closer and heard faint whispers, tense and urgent. I clicked off my flashlight and gripped my taser, inching closer. When I turned the corner, I raised my flashlight, but there was no one there. The whispering had stopped. Shaken, I decided to restore power. As I fumbled with the breakers, I heard something scrape nearby, a crowbar lying on the floor. It hadn't been there before. I yelled that I was armed, half bluffing, and headed for the door. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the building, followed by rushing footsteps. I turned and ran, adrenaline surging. I could hear them behind me but didn't look back. After what felt like forever, the footsteps faded. I made my way to the exit and stepped outside, calling the police. They arrived quickly, but the intruders were long gone. My boss criticized me for running, and I nearly lost my job. I still can't shake the strangeness of the encounter. It was clear they were messing with me. I'm just relieved they didn't catch me. I still work nights at that warehouse, but now there are at least 2 people on each shift.